All right, hello, I'm Baron Schimberg with the Schimberg Group. We've got here, and as I was explaining to Dave earlier, everybody in my office worked collaboratively to come up with these ideas and the project that was presented to us. So we've got Todd Anderson, Sonika Fury, and Patty Schimberg, two architects, two interior designers, and we all really sat around and collaboratively worked on this together. So it really was a neat effort and a lot of fun, if nothing else. So we really, we love these, and as we go through this, you'll see sort of the level that we took it to, and hopefully we responded in the best way that we could at this point, and then it allows us to go from there. So as you started to give us the sort of the program, as I was saying, we sort of started with the whole plan, and we had a plan of the building at the Wells Fargo Center on this screen, on the whiteboard, and as we started looking at it, and we started saying, okay, where would it go and how would we start laying this out, we realized also in conversation that this could be repeated in multiple buildings, that we said, you know, it's not necessarily about how you lay out this Wells Fargo Center, because at the end of the day, we'll figure that out. We know we can figure that out from a design standpoint. So there's no to us, that wasn't sort of the issue. Okay, the issue was, what do you put in this, and how is the theme, or what is the design, and what is the style, and what are we trying to create here? So we started listing on the board just brainstorming. I mean, literally, it was a brainstorm session. We sat here for about 2 hours, and we came up with as many ideas that were either predicated on style design or a name. Because you said, what's the name of this? So we listed everything, and we drew it, and we came up with different ideas and different thoughts and different names and different, we each started with the charge to everyone of, okay, come up with 3 different names for this place, and then that would end up leading itself to a potential style or a potential design. So at the end of that session, that two-hour session, we sort of narrowed it down to 4 different concepts. Okay, and what those concepts are 4 very different styles, or 4 very different approaches to this concept of what you are trying to create, which is, we're calling an office club, or an executive club of some sort. Whether it has fitness, or whether it has a conference room, or whether it has a bar or whatever, we feel that can be worked out as we go along. We know the preliminary parameters, which are, we want wine and beer, you were talking about sort of an area to go and you can pour your own, or you can have that. We were adding, how great would it be to have like a Wii center, that you could go and you could just play Wii and relax and do that for a period of time. Maybe there's obviously a bar of some sort that people can sit and relax. Maybe there are certain areas that are defined around the space, depending on what the shape of the space is, that you can just sit and have a meeting. Maybe there's a conference room that we talked about that you could go to and have a meeting, or have a private session in your own office or in your own conference room. Maybe there's fitness, or maybe there's an area that you could work out or relax, or there's spa or something. But those are the program parameters that we can come up with later, that we can keep working on. So what we wanted to really present to you are 4 different concepts, okay? And with each concept is a name that we are proposing. And let me preface the whole thing by saying none of this is written in stone, and it is all just more, really it's to brainstorm further and give you even more things to think about, okay? But we're like I said, we're sort of beyond excited about what the opportunities that lie with these ideas, and how we can then manifest them into space and design it, okay? So there are 4 different concepts, and what we've got is up on the board these are descriptions of the space, which I don't know if you can read from there, but there are descriptions of the space that include materials, that may include a feeling that we want to provoke, that may include shapes or spatial design. The first one is, well, let me keep going. So that's on the board here in black, and each one is color coded, sort of to the feel of the space. In here is just a general things that we see in every space, which we'll go over. On the table are the four different types of spaces or design ideas that are also then have interiors that we pulled out, okay, to give you a sense of what the space can feel like. And then facing you, Dave, actually are images that we printed out to give you an idea of what this space could feel like also, okay? Then we also went even farther and have a food that we thought could be interesting and fun that are sort of attributable to that type of space. So for example, and I'll quickly go through, the first in blue it's called azure, which means blue, but it's a color, but it has a feel of a spa-like. So the whole place could have this very spa-like, serene feel to it, and that would be the design sort of charge, okay, and goal of creating that. So with that, we thought, okay, let's have like a blue food or a something that's. Whoop.
Yep, that's okay.
Bring that down. Okay, so.
Okay.
All right. So for this one, we showed blueberries. So we could see maybe there are blueberry martinis, maybe there are blueberry bowls with blueberries everywhere that become a signature food and a signature dish throughout. The next one is called nuts and bolts, and that's the name that we're proposing. Could become NB. Okay, so there's some play with those letters and words. That's more of we're describing it as a whimsical industrial space. So a lot of concrete, a lot of woods, interplay of those different shapes and materials. And here, because it's called nuts and bolts, we could have, and these are sort of high-end nuts. So you could have this play with certain types of nuts throughout. Bolts. I mean, I could see even a bowl with a bunch of bolts in it. I mean, but again, it's this play of sort of work and play together. So that's another concept. The third concept is then, we call it international, and the name of it could be just like recycle, recycle, reform, recharge. So that's another, and the style of that would be European in a way. So you can see we have some European wafers here. Again, if that could be a signature dish that the chef would come up with, and that's something that's used. Again, it could be a drink, it could be an actual food, it could be an actual entree or dessert that is part of it. But again, you can see more colorful, much more. Almost like Danish or that European style, lower profile furniture, lots of color, and again, just another different concept. So then the fourth one is called compass, and that is, we came to that as if you're trying to give direction to people, and it becomes something that people are going to, they're business people, they're working. And it is about a little bit more traditional in nature with a contemporary spin to it, but we see a lot of leathers, red and dark woods. Here we have a very classic chocolate-covered strawberries, so that could be everywhere. So again, a little bit more classical, but with really earthy tones and earthy materials. Letters and numbers. We found this great wallpaper that we've actually used before. But again, it just gives that feel that we're trying to create in this one. So that's basically the different ideas, okay, that we've come up with. Now, one thing I want to throw out from a. Yeah, I'll wait till you.
Yeah.
Second one. I don't want it to fall out.
So we can get more detailed in what each, what we pulled out, and what we're showing here. But one, as we went through this and we came up with all these ideas, and the idea was really to propose this to you and say, which idea do you like?
Right.
And you may say, you know what, we really want this sort of spa-like place, and that's the one we're going to go with. Or we really like this industrial feel in a building, an office building, so that's the one we're going to go with. Another idea that we could entertain, I would say, is can you market this idea in a way that maybe in different parts of the country or different buildings, you pick one of these. So maybe in Tampa, you're in the whimsical industrial. You create that type of space. But in Orlando, maybe you do something that's a little bit more international since it's Orlando. So, again, this is a brainstorming session more than anything.
Yeah, the idea to that would be is, if it's taking international, that's the last one he said, clubbery,
Right.
Where when you go to Chicago, you may look for clubbery, as an executive business traveler, you're going to go look for the clubbery that you may belong to in Orlando or Tampa or LA, and there's a clubbery in every location that you're traveling to. Or the other idea to that is you use all four and you rotate them.
Right.
Executive club, and if you're in the Soho area, where you guys visit New York, if you're in that area, it's going to be more of a whimsical industrial feel. But if you're in downtown LA, it's going to be spa and natural beauty kind of, because everybody wants to go to the spa.
Well, and each one is so unique and so different and so potentially interesting that, that's what got us excited, is that, we really have, we feel we've come up with this sort of an interesting model, for a club, and how that club then becomes something from a design standpoint, and how you design it.
Because from a functionality perspective, relative to the club, what I'd like to do is I'd like to see, it's at some level there's got to be, not a deli, but there's got to be a food service element that goes with all of this kind of thing. It can sort of theme, which I'm getting from you guys, which is brilliant, is it can theme around, what we have up here, the menu items on the board and all that kind of stuff. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we'd like to bring into this, and I don't know, and Baron as usual probably should be down on this, but I'll throw it out anyhow, that when we were thinking about the Miramar, putting our offices in the belly of the Miramar, because there wasn't any windows and stuff like that, what we're going to do is we're going to get the 70-inch screen TVs, like your whiteboard is about that dimension, and have those in series all the way down, so when you go in, and it could be true of any one of these things.
Right.
Walk me through sort of that reality.
Sure. Well, and okay, so, and again, that's why we sort of didn't start drawing those out, because those are the concepts that can be applied. So I think there could be different ways of applying those also. In the Azure space, okay, if you went that route that's more spa-like, they're more organic shapes. So they could be, so if you're talking about like Wells Fargo Center, okay, the entire outside perimeter, though as you go higher you want to look out, at that second level with a garage right there, you're not really looking out. So you're more internalizing the space than you are putting the TVs around the outside and trying to get views, okay?
Right.
So we could see, so one of the drawings we had was, if this is the space, we could see creating these centers, okay, that you sit, and these hanging hanging TVs that you can watch, and you can watch monitors, more internalized. The bar is then here, people walk in the center, and you can then, circulate around that way.
When you say bar, you're talking about the self-service wine and beer elements that we're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
With bits and pieces like you displayed.
And we were saying, like, have a charge card. So you could get a card, okay, and you come in and you swipe, and you get your wine. That's how you get your wine. Right.
And we do that for free, so we don't have the problem of
everybody
selling
gets a card.
alcohol.
That's part of the membership. That's part of the whole thing.
Right.
So again, going back to these general things, outdoor spaces.
And everybody's seen these things, but for the benefit of you, Reed, that is the thing that we're talking about, which I'm sure you've seen, back in time. But the idea on it would be is that when you would get, thank you, when you would get, when you would leave space in the building or you do whatever economic activity that we like, then we would give you these cards, and we could design it to where you go in and everybody can use it, you get, 1 or 2 drinks, and that's kind of it. And then you can buy another card that has as many on them as you want, but the idea would be to get people to go in there. And it'd be a relatively, in my view, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, in my view, it'd be sort of, maybe a total of 8 different kinds of wines.
Correct.
And 4 different kinds of, nothing, nothing
you
prolific.
Can't go crazy.
You can't go crazy,
Right.
but, but that would be,
That's right.
that would be the idea.
Absolutely.
And,
right.
and so, and again, sort of drawing from my visual, did you see the movie, it was a Schwarzenegger movie, it was Total Recall?
Sure.
Okay, so remember when they were sitting down at breakfast, and it was just sort of when I'm drawing my idea for the Miramar, they're sitting down, did you see this movie? Okay, you need to read. So, so they're sitting down and they're at breakfast with Sharon Stone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they have this big screen TV like that behind them, but they're inside this, this kind of small apartment and everything. It doesn't have any windows, and it's an industrial area and all that kind of stuff. So she can push a button and they can have whatever scene they want.
Right.
So they could have it as.
Yeah. Hunger Games had it too.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's and you can do that. The only thing about that may be something where I could see running those along the exterior.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Because
so that you have this sort of layering,
okay.
so that you can watch here, but if you want to feel like you're in a scene, if you want to feel like you're in the forest,
right.
you can pump that. You can press that button, and all of a sudden the space that you are enclosed in becomes that space.
And that could be done with not only in the forest, but it would come with forest sounds. It would come with birds, and
you could do the city. You could do in the middle of an island in Hawaii. I mean,
and then all the sounds that are germane to that location would be resident in that sitting area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the key is, I think, is that the sitting areas are oriented this way so that you can watch TV not against the window, and it allows you to create that space. Versus if you were this way, your backs are away from what's sort of going on.
Right.
So I think there's a way, and I mean, there could be a series of walls that create these spaces within the space that gives you that flexibility of creating your own sort of environment that you're trying to.
And it'd almost be not completely private because it wouldn't have doors or what have you, but it'd be, if someone walked by, they would have to purposely look in to see who's there. So it would have that element.
And I mean, you could do that with fabric, you could do that with walls, you could do that with screens that come down. I mean, it's endless.
I could almost see sort of also having those things where they create white noise. So if you're in there talking, in a lower voice and stuff like that, then then you could really segregate it out that way.
Yep. Yep. So what else? So I mean, fireplaces. You could throw fireplaces in each one. Again, making it feel like separate. And there are alcohol burning fireplaces that you don't need a hood and blah blah blah. So you can recreate spaces within this to give people a place to go. And that's the idea. So,
but the idea would be, for instance, in Wells Fargo, because that's like the target of our emotion today. You wouldn't mix any of these. You would just have.
No, I would pick one.
Pick one and go with it, and then that would be your thing.
I would pick one.
And then in 10 years' time, you change it, or 5 years' time, you change it,
or upgrade it,
or whatever.
Yeah. And again, I think this is. I think you guys have to go through the marketing. The marketing thoughts as to how, do you get more bang for your buck by picking a style and a direction to go, and all of these places that you create in buildings are the same one. So when you go to Compass, that's the name, you know that you're going to Compass and it's in every one, and you've got a Compass in every state, or whatever. Right. Or do you want to pick and choose which feeling you want within that space? But I wouldn't mix I wouldn't mix these. I would pick one.
Right.
We actually had that conversation at one point. Does the club become, just to throw out something generic, it's generic executive club. And if you wanted to go to the nature room, or you wanted to go to the concrete room, or you wanted to go to it got very busy, you know, and it got very detached in a way, so.
Identity a little bit.
It did, yeah, that's a great,
Well,
it
plus-
did. It was losing its identity, so that when you, for the Tampa location, if we pick Whimsy Industrial, nuts and bolts, you can have your little rooms with your screen walls that you can change the scenery, but still the style, you have exposed ductwork, you have,
Right.
Yeah.
you have furniture, you have materials, you have colors that insinuate a Whimsy industrial, you know, industrial nuts and bolts kind of feel.
Well, and my other concern, because I think you're right what you said earlier in terms of that, and that is that if I go through and I mix all those, by definition, you're gonna have 4 of those, and of those 4, 1 or 2 are gonna be my favorite, and then the others aren't. And so then, you know, I'm gonna lose some of my element with that.
And from a design standpoint, I mean, I think it's always better to keep something consistent within a space than to all of a sudden have all these different,
Right.
because then it gets confusing and, you know, you go, where am I at? But I do think that the opportunity to create spaces, okay, now getting into the design sort of how you do it, and I do think that there is I would encourage that whatever the shape of the space is, okay, what, you know, Wells Fargo Center has a very unique perimeter,
Yes.
okay, but it's still a rectangle. I mean, that's basically what it is. And I would imagine that whatever the space, whatever the square footage we come up with is what you end up needing based on the program that you require. That's going to dictate a shape of some sort, okay, rectangle.
You're gonna be a horseshoe.
That's right.
No
You're
matter
going to
how
have, right, exactly. So that's the idea, is that you come in, that there's a bar when you walk in, that's your entrance, you have a hostess maybe. I mean, there's that sort of entry feature, there's possibly, like in this, I mean, you could have a wall of wood, you know,
Right.
and I mean, that becomes part of the space and part of the design. But you walk in, you center it. We always like to center on places like this because it gives you then options. If you come to one side, you then have to move through it, and that's not as conducive to a good space, an efficient space. So if you come in the center, if you want to go to the conference room, if you want to go to in restaurants, if you want to go to the higher end dining, or if you want to go to a little bit more casual, it gives you that flexibility of moving throughout
Without
the
having to
space.
walk through.
Without having to walk through a space, exactly.
Okay.
So that's the idea, and then if it's a series of rooms, you know, that we are creating, all of this becomes where you get your stuff, your wine, your beer, your food, your nuts, whatever.
In that environment, where would you put sort of the deli? I hate to call it a deli because it's going in because it's so much more. But
Yeah.
I mean, where would you put your deli component in?
Either it's down here,
Okay.
either it's to one side, so you have deli to one side and office to the other.
Okay.
That would work. Or if the space allows you, you could put it in the middle, so that all of your functions are in the middle. Again, the space, every space is going to be different.
Right.
So if you put it in the middle and you had enough space to move around it, then this becomes sort of this box within this space, and you could do all, you know, you could put your kitchen back there or whatever.
From a conference room standpoint, you know, there's items and buildings that, let me rephrase that, in the city of Tampa and Tampa Bay in general. I'm sure it's the same in Orlando, maybe different in Miami or wherever. But when you have a gym, a spa, whatever, in the building, it's probably one of the least used items that there is. I mean, it's just, you know, because everybody, you know, assuming you work out, you have a place you go, and it isn't necessarily your building, you know, and all. So, but there are people that will use it, and all. So, but it's a very, very limited amount and non-impactful relative to the scheme of things. So that's those things in buildings. The other thing is that buildings that have conference rooms, in all the years I've been doing this, I don't really ever recall anybody other than a small tenant that really needed a conference room that came into the building and rented from us because there was a free conference room, which basically means there was free space for them that they could use and all. So, you know, the conference rooms are generally something that get used even less than a gym workout type of environment. And that's, we had this discussion, and for the benefit of those watching, this idea is sort of born out of the fact that you've got three elements, two of which nobody uses, and the other is pedestrian at best, to change it up. So the top circle that you have there, I would assume is whatever conference area. But you know, we could do it through. I mean, if we so dictated, you could incorporate something where it had one of those pocket doors or folding things that had a natural thing to pull it across. But
Yeah.
But you're even talking, you know, when you say conference rooms now, and maybe one idea would be is, where is it shifting to? You know, we were talking about Skyping in Reed today.
Yeah.
You know, into the fact of this circle on top, isn't this, you know, it doesn't have to be this dedicated 15 by 20 conference room. Each one of these little seating areas that has a screen that pulls down behind a little wall that would turn into a nature scene, it's Skype available. You sit there with 2 or 3 little people with your iPads, and you're Skyping somebody else who's in a conference room in another building.
Or each of those screens are loaded with Skype, to where they become.
Every single one of those little seating areas is a conference room.
So then, what you could do for the screens that are, I love this idea. So this is great stuff. So for the screens that are between you and the bar area, you know, that could be Skype, and then behind you could be whatever scene that you wanted to have behind you.
Well, that's it, right.
Which could be, among other things, it could be whatever city scene that you wanted. It could be your company's logo. So as you're sitting there being Skype, you got your company logo behind you.
Sure.
Do you watch, what comes on before Pardon the Interruption?
If it isn't SpongeBob, I don't know.
Oh gosh, it's on ESPN. It's on ESPN, of course, and it's a little bantering show. And of course, there's one guy in the host at ESPN Studios, and there's 4 pictures on the
that's
screen.
Pardon the Interruption, right?
No, Pardon the Interruption comes on after that. That's just with the 2 guys. But
I know what you're talking about. It's the guy with the really white teeth.
Yes.
A lot of teeth. Yeah.
But behind every single one of those, I mean, is a little image of, you know, L.A., Denver's, you know, scene, and then there's this guy's in Boston, so he has a Boston skyline behind him, and I mean, literally,
You
it's
could be
almost
anywhere
representing your
including
city.
South Africa.
Yeah, representing your city in that way. So each one of those little areas, because there's 5 guys on this little bantering show, and they're in 5 different cities.
Oh yeah,
You
no,
know,
I get it.
it's
You're exact. I can't remember what the name of that is,
Yeah.
but I do know what you're talking about. I have seen that show. Surfing through.
Around the Horn.
Around the Horn. That's
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
So
one thing that I just wanted to make sure was clear
mhm.
was all of these concepts we tried to make rather timeless. You can put them anywhere, and so even though we might associate Azure and spa-like with, say, Los Angeles, I think it would be a refreshing, lovely, in the coldest spot in Boston, little oasis.
Right.
And so, and our idea was to have a very distinct visual, decorative envelope for all these interesting technical concepts you have that could be at home anywhere. And it would be up to the marketing brains to say the nuts and bolts concept would be a really unique, one-of-a-kind thing in this location.
Right.
But it's not, we try not to go too trendy, and rather friendly, wanting, inviting environments. So just wanted to make sure that, if you have all these different screens with lots of different things going on, it'd be nice to have a nice, consistent environment around all that.
Okay.
And that's what we tried to create. I don't know if you have had time to look at all these little descriptive bullets Baron wrote down there.
Baron, if you would, for this, just go down each one of those and just, start with natural beauty.
So natural beauty would be one style. Spa-like, Mediterranean came to mind. Very organic spaces, very organic shapes. So so these sofas may be curvilinear, and if you look at some of these images, you'll see more curved spaces using wood in that way. So glass and wood are materials that we could see using. Neutral colors, but with blue accents, so that it doesn't become this blue space, but doing it in a very, again, like Patty was saying, very sort of timeless, but using them smartly. Softer, curvy shapes to the furniture design, that's what I described. And again, just the circulation itself can be more fluid, and the spaces can connect to each other versus going from one room to another. It could be more fluid. So that would be more applicable to this type of space. The second one is we titled it Whimsical and Industrial. The name of it is Nuts and Bolts. Elegant warehouse came to mind with exposed ductwork, so that gives you an idea of how the space would be designed to show the inner workings. That was, we kept talking about this as a place where people are going to come from work or during work or after work, so it should have that sort of grittiness to it of working. Concrete, using concrete as a material. We said work in place, so that there's sort of this juxtaposition of the two. So maybe there's one area where you can have an office, or you can put something on the screen, and there's another place where you go and you play a Wii game. There may be this interplay between those two, and relax. Have a signature food. They all would have a signature food, but this one would obviously be nuts, and you could have fun with that. Wood and metals, and then using vintage furniture throughout, rather than the same furniture everywhere, but interplay, intersperse vintage older pieces of furniture throughout, which again becomes sort of a design tool. And have this loft feel. That's the idea behind that one. The third one, which International and Recharge was sort of the names or the feelings that we came up, that we wanted to project, and the name of it is probably would end up being Club but this one would be, and though they could all be LEED rated, this one we would recommend absolutely doing LEED rated. That becomes part of the marketing tool. I always say, when you go, going LEED or getting a certification, a LEED certification, is really a marketing tool. It's not. You don't really,
You don't make any money.
Yeah, you don't make any money off of it. It is strictly a marketing tool, but it gives you a direction, and it makes you more environmentally friendly. Having said that, we would be environmentally friendly in all of these, but this one would sort of highlight that as a marketing tool. So environmentally responsible, recycled, we use a lot of recycled material. We would use recycled, there's tile and glass and flooring and furniture, and everything would be recycled, and that would be part of the marketing strategy. So express the greenness, more modern though, as you can see in the pictures. A little bit more like Scandinavian furniture, using Scandinavian furniture, a little bit lower profile furniture, maybe mixing some traditional with high modern. Again, that sort of, that highlights what they are and is an interesting play of styles. Layering of large, interesting colored panels. So again, more colorful versus the other two, which one was a little bit, going in a direction of a color. One is more material focused, and then this one really approaches it from a color standpoint. Open seating areas, brighter light. Nuts and bolts may be a little bit darker. This one may have more white light rather than warmer lights, and more colorful. So the fourth one then is we use the word timeless. The name we came up with was Compass, in terms of giving direction. Here we're talking about earthy woods, using a lot of leather, maybe slate. Again, giving sort of this more powerful.
Did you get this chandelier from the melting pot?
Oh, is that what? No.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
No. So more powerful, using red as an accent, which is a powerful color, and using text and numbers as the decor. We just felt like that was appropriate for this type of space. Higher back furniture rather than lower profile, so again, more stately, more traditional. And maybe in this case you may have more private areas. This may you know, this theme or this design may attribute to, you know, areas that have more walls, maybe enclosed rather than big and open, like you know, nuts and bolts or Club Re. Okay.
How would you encompass, you know, compasses on it? I mean, you know, we used to have them into the, you know, embedded into the floor.
Well, again, yes. I mean, you could do almost anything. One thing that we don't want to do is let it become a nautical thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to be careful there.
Okay.
So, and we talked about it, you know, a lot. But the idea, and you can see in the images, it's not nautical. I mean, it is about using a circle, using numbers, using, you know, arrows. I mean,
So you're keeping completely away from anything nautical?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
For this, yes.
And in each one of these schemes, we have materials and finishes. It's meant to give you a feel of what, when you walk in, what the space will be
Right.
like. We have flooring for each one, countertop, what that would look like, some wall finishes, what type of color wood would be incorporated there, and the upholstery, would it be softer, like this one, or the leathers, combination of leathers, so.
And you asked about nautical, and one of the terms we thought of was more old world, you know, with compass, maybe old world more style.
Oh, I see, okay, I
You
got
know,
you.
traditional old world style, but then literally not saying that we're going to put, you know, terrazzo flooring that has a compass inlay, but the idea that of just the materials itself, you're gonna get this feel
It makes it timeless.
of a timeless old world.
This is circles. It's
Got it.
not a compass.
But it's a
not an
circle.
actual compass or something. But it has circles in it. You know. I mean,
Okay.
that's, you know.
And the numbers,
Yeah, numbers
And letters.
Right.
Perhaps
incorporated
maps.
subtly in,
Right.
within the space.
Right.
Okay,
It may be very, you know, grand superimposed maps, you know, like if we're talking about these little seating areas in these screens, and I know we're going back to this technical issue, but when you first walk into the space, every single screen has a map on it, you know.
The
and-
starter screen.
The starter
Starter
screen
screen,
is a map.
would follow each of these elements
Right.
through it?
Yeah,
Possibly.
Okay.
Again, you know, as we're designing and talking about all this, we got to be careful how far we go, because we don't want to lead you in a specific direction, because you know, this has to be a thought process. We have to go through this.
Mhm.
Once we get a program, then we can start applying these ideas to that program. Meaning, if the program lends itself to a circular bar, then that may relate to something in this one.
Oh, I see.
So-
So the
you
space
know-
the space may dictate which of these elements you go with.
Absolutely, and how we project and how we use each one of these materials or different things. And I mean, I say this confidently, and probably as an egotistical architect, we can make anything great. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Me too.
There's no question of whether or not the design can be just a fabulous place. The key is getting the program and the scope down and determining what exactly we want in the space,
Mhm.
and maybe a direction in terms of the style you want, and then whether we use this wood or not, who knows? It doesn't matter. It'll look great, and we'll make it. You know.
So the general items, walk me through each one of those for
Okay.
benefit.
So in the general, we're saying
These are things that could be
applied to everything.
applied to everything.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. So we could see outdoor spaces. So obviously in the Wells Fargo Center there may not be that opportunity, but in other spaces we would love to see an outdoor space as part of this. I think each one of these could have that you know that space or that room that you have to go to. A wine room.
You know, the outdoor space on this stuff, you know, to capture, I'm not sure I want to capture smokers, but, you know,
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
Right.
you know, I don't know if you want to capture smokers either. Matter of fact, I'd say no
No.
smoking.
yeah.
I think that's
In
even
the outdoor
cooler.
space, yeah.
I would say anywhere. I would say this place is a no. This club or this whatever is a no smoking club.
Right.
I don't know if you can do that now.
No, you can
Well, that's
because-
tough for me, and all I can think of is executives where I'm a cigar smoker. So if
See,
I'm
that's
relating
what I'm trying-
if I'm relating to a CEO, powerful, high-end executive,
Right.
I'm thinking of a bunch of people
And
in a room
maybe
smoking
one of
some
these
cigars.
rooms has that capability.
Because I know that if you have a no smoking building, which obviously this is, well, maybe
Yeah.
not obviously, but this is, and any other building you're gonna go into is, I mean, you know all the
Yeah.
rules. But, I'm just, I'm thinking as far as an outdoor space or creating an outdoor space,
It would give you that opportunity to
Will
do
become
that.
okay.
Well, I know companies now that it's no smoking site premises. I mean, I've seen people have to walk across the street
Right.
to smoke.
Yeah, me too, but from the building owner's perspective, I mean, if we could create sort of a cigar type of thing or something
Yeah.
like that.
Maybe that's part of
Okay,
it.
maybe
Yep.
that's part of it.
And maybe, you know, like I said, maybe that's just a separate room that you go to that has all the smoke eaters and all the technical
Everything,
stuff that
right.
you need so that it doesn't infiltrate.
But when it comes
Since
to
we
maybe,
know what that's like,
Right,
infiltrating smoke.
but one of our ideas, maybe more specifically on the outdoor space, there again, the Tampa site not lending itself so much to that, but the next site might be in Chicago on the 12th floor that has a terrace.
Well, I could actually
And
see the Tampa
there's-
space accommodating it. You know, we could just evacuate the glass on, you know, 2 or 3 panels, and then building an outdoor area like that that overlooked whatever, you know, the water side or, you know,
Okay.
something like that. You could do it. I mean, it'd be a fun conversation to have with the city,
Right.
you know, but
It's just cost.
it's just cost.
So a wine room, which more is in line with what we've already talked about, that wine, you know, you go up and you can pour the wine and you have that as a you know, that's a consistent thing in all of these. They all will have ability to pour your own wine and
Beer.
get that, and beer, yeah, wine and beer. A charge card, which we talked about, just everybody would get a charge card. That's how you get a lot of these things, okay,
Right.
in here, whatever they are. Signature food and drink, every single one of these should have that, which is why we have these out, and you know, the chef would come up with that, and like I said, whether it's a signature entree or an appetizer or whatever, but the idea is that every single one of these had that thing. Again, it's a marketing tool,
Right.
so it gives everybody to know that that's what that place has.
And
That's what they're
then
gonna go
all
to.
these foods and all this stuff, you know, whatever, as the items that you put out here, would all be maintained by whoever is the deli
Sure,
operator.
whoever the
You know, and
absolutely,
that would be it.
the food
And-
equipment, the
and
food service.
Right, and part and parcel of their thing would be to keep those things filled, and then whatever daytime concierge, that person would have to be cycled through this space on a consistent basis, you know, make sure that it's clean and it's kept up and the whole bit.
Sure, you're gonna have a whole
Yeah,
employee, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We screen, we just thought that was a fun thing to add to it. Again, I mean, whether it goes in every one, it was an idea. Fireplaces, we think could go in every single one of these. Again, it just creates that sort of warm, I hate to say residential, but it's more about sort of welcoming space, okay, that you sit around. And if each one of these spaces that you're creating had that little fireplace, it just is a neat feel and an interesting.
One of my favorite things, and I saw it in, you see it around a lot, but I first saw it in Oslo, where they had when you went into, it was in a hotel, and when you went in, they had up against the wall, they had up against the wall, they had a whole bunch of the broken tempered glass in a field, and then with the fire, you know, alcohol burning things, you know, coming out of it. And so when you walk in, I mean, that was without question one of the coolest elements that you could hope for.
They're really clean and they're portable if you choose to
Right.
Do that. So you could actually have fireplace.
Because I could see
Elements.
fire as an element, and you know, you say fireplace or fire element in every one of these
Sure.
things, and I think
Yeah.
that would be, you know, I think, you know, along the lines of just sort of that, you know, very eye-catching. Wow, I'm transformed from, you know, the confines of a typical office building or, you know, all that kind of stuff, and I walk into this space and I'm in a different world. I mean, I really am.
Well, and that is conducive to what we're talking about in terms of the space. So that theme is projected in each one of these areas too. So that does become the marketing tool
Right.
that you're trying to create in this space, that you can come to your own little world, and this is what, and you can make it anything. You can make it any world you want to be. If you are, if you're having a meeting with a Japanese, the CEO of some Japanese company, and he likes golf, you could put, you could create sort of your own golf, your own, what's it called?
Just a picture of a greens
Yeah,
from
the greens,
Augusta
right.
or
You
something.
can feel like you're in there.
And
Exactly.
that could be just sort of which is easy to do nowadays. It can just be sort of one of 100 scenes in a library that
Easy.
you make it.
100. You could do thousands.
Right.
I mean, literally, that's easy. That's easy.
That's the easy side.
Yeah,
And
that's-
also,
that's
if you do a video conference, and I guess the concept on it would be is to set it up to where you could do a video conference. You'd have the Skype capability. You'd have all that kind of stuff, and it'd have to be done in such a fashion to where not necessarily a novice at technology, but someone that didn't have the heavy element of how to start something up and how to initiate
That's just
a call.
technology.
Yeah.
You just sit down, you press a button, and
And it'll come up, but it'd have to be designed and stuff. Okay.
Have somebody program something really simple.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm just saying. And
Absolutely, the
so you
programming is easy. I mean, again, going back to what you said in the beginning, which was conference rooms aren't necessarily used because everybody has their conference room. Okay, I have this space, and I would come here. What they don't have though is the ability to make their conference room whatever they want.
Right.
This is it. We love this conference room, but if I was in a different realm of business, and I was having more or different people coming in and having meetings in that setting, and I wanted to create a different feel of a conference room, that's what you're creating here. You're creating that opportunity to create that room, and that becomes what you've done. That's the difference between this conference room or this space and every other conference room.
I can tell you one thing relative to from the technology side of it. I'll give a quick example. Back in time in the early '90s, before you had all the what was it what's the service where you can go anywhere in the world on with video? That Google puts together, Google Earth. That's what I'm thinking. So before you had any of that kind of thing, we put together a marketing tool that basically the objective is to be able to show the client the market without them leaving their office. And so it was really sort of avant-garde. I mean, it hadn't been done before. So we went through the whole thing and we did our photos and the whole bit. And we would go to a client's office, and we would take them on a tour of the market without them leaving the office in the early '90s, which was, there wasn't anybody doing that. And so once we had that all done, we give our presentation. At the end of the presentation, one of the very first questions asked wasn't about whether or not I was going to be able to represent that client in the marketplace. The first question they asked is, how did you do that, and where can I get that technology to do that? And so, in thinking of this, that's what I would like, my tenants to be able to come in and sit there and have, using your example, having, ASO, the bandage manufacturer, you're talking to those guys, and they have a penchant for either golf or the Vegas Strip or whatever it is, and being able to have that in the background, it's a great icebreaker. As to where are you guys? We're in our tower in downtown Tampa, but we knew that you like this element, so we've got this behind us, and and then the whole conversation flows from that, and it becomes a real novelty. And so I see, like you and I spoke of quite a while ago, is when people go in and they look at this thing, they think this is absolutely amazing the way that this has all come together, and it's very novel, it's very unique, and it's something that we want to do.
But maybe you need to take this over, but yet, and like Baron said before, we can fit technology into any one of these schemes, and maybe.
I'm confident of that.
We can make it look good, we can make it work, but the consistency of it is, I guess we don't like want to have this as a chameleon space. I mean, we're talking about these technology rooms that you can change what to look like anything you want. But at the same time, maybe like the dividing walls between the little seating areas. If it was the Natural Beauty Azure Club, then it would be a fabric panel that gives you a spa feeling.
Okay.
But if it was the whimsical industrial nuts and bolts, it would be
Expanded metal.
a garage door for all we know.
Consistency
You know,
in the design.
yes, you know, so I mean, that's
Okay.
really what some of these concepts are about, so.
Well, you guys have done an amazing job. I mean, this is,
It was fun.
I'm overwhelmed. I mean, I really am.
Blast.
This is, I can tell you had fun, which is sort of, you know, that's what I specialize in. So, I mean, this is absolutely spot on. And I think that the items that you've taken, the Natural Beauty, the Whimsical, Industrial, International, and the Compass Timeless elements really sort of cover the whole, you know, unless you went into, you know, I got a 9-year-old, so Disney's always sort of part of my thing. I mean, unless you went into some, you know, some
Right.
movie themed or something like that. I mean, these really capture sort of the, you know, the four corners of the earth, as it were.
And any of them can be as playful or as serious and elegant as
Oh, yeah.
your market.
Yeah, you could
needs.
up, yeah, you could modulate
If there are
that.
kids coming through, then we could, you know, add elements to any of those designs that would be kid-friendly. If it was, you know, a more traditional client in the building and, you know, any of these, even if they sound rather hip and funky, could be.
Well, are there any, in the general category, we named outdoor space, wine, beer/cigar room, charge cars, weed screen, fireplaces, small theater room, I threw that one on there yesterday, Vernon. I mean, are there any other, you know, sort of, man, boy, I've never seen this in one of these places, or,
You know, you've hit them all. I mean, you know, you've got the, I don't know, I mean, you could have some, you know, some water feature that would be germane to each that you could do. You know, I'm sensitive to sort of the, you know, the mechanical component of that and all.
Right.
You know, that would be pretty cool. I mean, obviously things that we know are in here that aren't written under general, but we know are there would be, you know, Wi-Fi, you know, connections and stuff like this
Right.
that would go through. I'd like to probably see somewhere where you could do, you know, some sort of printing, you know, in various colors and stuff like that. You know, so I mean,
so a printing center?
not necessarily a printing center, but you know, for instance, if you're in any of these rooms and stuff like that, you'd want to be able to, you know, you want to print something off. You know, sort of buried in there would be a, you know, an HP
Sure.
that's behind the wall, you know, that you could just print out and have it right there, so you can
Below the
distribute.
table somewhere.
But yeah, exactly. You know, some, you know, just sort of an elegantly hidden, you know, type thing that, you know, that you could just, you can either, you know, do it via wire, you know, wirelessly, or you can plug into and stuff like that, and you know, to where you could get that element, you know, the printing element of it.
Again, in terms of the program, because we feel that the program is sort of, it can be set and can be created or designed in a way that gives you that flexibility of putting it in almost any space, which I think is key to this, okay? Especially when you're doing a prototype or you're doing something that's potentially repeated, you know, that's why every grocery store is the same, that's why every McDonald's, I mean, you know,
Right.
you try to create that consistency. And that consistency in terms of what this becomes is creating a perimeter space, perimeter offices or spaces that are centered, that have a center of a bar or, you know, entry bar / food area that you come into. Okay, that's sort of the gist of it, and that can just continue around, and that's it. That works in almost every space. We can make that work in a circle. We can make that work in a square. We can make that work in a rectangle. Whatever. Okay, so that I think is the key.
But I do like the idea of, you know, you come in, you know, to the main area, and then you can either go to the area where it's more conference oriented, but you have all the others, or over to the food service, deli,
Right.
restaurant type thing.
Yep.
Sort of still brainstorming with the general is, I mean, is there a need for a small corner with a lifted platform for live, somebody to set up live music? Is somebody coming in on Friday afternoons and playing string quartet, or a guy on his acoustical guitar, or
That is
a little sax and a drum, a little jazzy, something? Is there a,
well, probably to design the space. That's a great point, actually. To design the space in such a fashion to where, let's say, Lights wants to come in and, hey,
Have a function.
for a function from X to Y, we're going to be taking this thing over, and here's what we want to do. So maybe, we'd have the ability to cordon off the deli area to where that isn't part of it, but would be able to pass food, they'd be able to serve food and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's interesting. So in other words, instead of having a conference area that you close off, you have the ability to close off the entire thing for a function of no more than an hour or two, or if it's in the evening after 6:30 or 7, something like that. I mean, I could easily see this being sort of a venue of choice. It's, where people would say, hey, this is a very cool space. Let's go over there. The we, I think, is a lot of fun, because I can see team building exercises behind that. So maybe we take those screens and what have you, and we put them so they can articulate. And so, you have all the people sort of around the bar area being able to do the we, and sort of in a team building exercise and stuff like that for various offices. I could see that being a lot of fun.
Do you
That's a
see
great
it open
idea.
to the public at all, or it's not the idea? It's an exclusive amenity?
Depending on how much money they pay us.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it would be we would make this an exclusive amenity to the building. Now, having said that, if we had a prospective tenant that wanted to do it, we'd probably, queue it for them to, to have their employees come over. I see this is going to be expensive to build, but having built it, I think that it's going to do two things for us. One is it's going to reduce the amount of time between leases, but by the time somebody moves out and we acquire a new tenant. I think this is going to cut that gap. And if you look at how much people pay each month for rent, even in relatively smaller spaces, that's a big number not to have. So I see this as
Because of the amenity, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, because of all of your work.
Right.
So I see that, cutting down, and if it cuts down, a month or two, building wide on an ongoing basis, this thing is more than paid for itself. So I see that as a tool in that regard. I also see it in terms of retention of tenants. So if I have a tenant that moves out, I mean, you all know the expense. I mean, tenant moves out, then you got downtime, and then you get a new tenant. There's commission to a broker. There's tenant improvements that you have to do to the space. There's a wide variety of activities that occur, and it destabilizes your property. And also, I see that as something that is a very strong element of retaining tenants. The other thing that I see this is attracting, smaller firms of, 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. So in any property, you'd rather have a building filled with 3,000 to 5,000 square foot tenants rather than filled with 100,000 square foot tenants, because no one tenant can hurt you. So I think this is going to have a really strong appeal to the preponderance of tenants in the marketplace in the 3,000 to 5,000 square foot range, because they have a higher penchants of being much more team oriented. There's fewer people in the office, so by definition, your interpersonal relationships are that much more than if you're part of a 200,000 square foot tenant.
It's not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, exactly.
From your standpoint.
From our standpoint, and then having, but having something that you can go through and you can team build around, or it's an amenity that, gee, I moved into this building, it's a little bit pricier than I wanted to do, but my employees really love this space, and if I ever have to go and counsel somebody, or just have all that, it's a unique place to go. It's an oasis outside of the world of business and all that. So I see that as another significant driver. So from my perspective, even though we're spending a lot of money on this space, the inherent benefits of having it and the uniqueness of having it and its impact on current tenants, existing tenants, and prospective tenants just makes it all worthwhile. And I can even see, something like this, if we go over to a building and we're trying to woo a tenant over, we hand out 10 cards, and say, hey, have your people go over to our place. Here's 10 cards, the whole bit.
Right.
So you could actually see it as a marketing tool. So there's a variety of ways, and I'm sure Reed and his buddies are going to think of a lot more than I have and all. But I think that this is when it comes to creating something, this is a very positive leverage value. This is exciting. I think you guys did an amazing job, especially in a short period of time. But anyhow,
Cool.
What do you think?
Well, thank you.
All right, so that ends our YouTube. Reed, I hope you like it, buddy. A lot of people did a lot of work for this. See ya.